Okay, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining another DevTest Community Webcast. Today we're going to be covering the brand new Service Virtualization Jenkins Plugin. You may have noticed we recently added a new category to the DevTest community for this plugin. So we're going to be doing a presentation about it and just do a short presentation and a demo to show you guys what it's all about. On the phone today we have Peter Vlasek as well as Alan Baptista. They're going to be walking you through the presentation today. If you have any questions as we're going through the session, you can feel free to enter those into the Q&A box. You can find the Q&A box in the right-hand panel of your WebEx screen. If you don't see it there, you can maximize it by clicking on the ellipses, the ... at the bottom toolbar where you see the presentation right now, where it says more options, and then click on Q&A, and that will maximize it on the right-hand side for you. The reason we ask you to put any questions in there as opposed to the chat box is because everyone, including all of our presenters, will be able to see it that way. So if you put your questions in there, we are going to pause periodically throughout the session and answer them verbally. So we'll get to those as soon as we can. At the end of the session, we'll also be opening up for verbal questions. So if you have any questions you'd rather ask over the phone, you can hold them until the end, and I'll let you know how to unmute your phone lines at that point in time. Okay, so I think we're ready to go ahead and get started now. So I'm going to turn the call over to Peter. Peter, you can take it away.
Thank you, Melanie. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webcast. It's dedicated to the Jenkins plugin for CA Service Virtualization. I'm working in the product management for Service Virtualization product, and I'm here together with my colleague and friend Alan Baptista for the Service Virtualization product marketing.
Hi guys. Hi everyone. Thank you, Peter. I am the product marketer for Service Virtualization, have been for the last 6.5 years. I'm calling you from sunny California, and Peter's from, where is it you are in the world, Peter?
It's the very center of the Europe in Prague.
Very good. So it's a global call, as you can tell. And we will be taking this as a Q&A format, so more of an interactive between me and Peter, and hopefully all of you will also engage and put your questions, as Melanie had mentioned. So tell me when to get started, Peter.
Yeah, we can, sure.
Okay, so why don't we get started with the basic question. What is it? What is the CA Service Virtualization Jenkins plugin? What's it all about?
Yeah, so thank you for the first question. So the CA Service Virtualization Jenkins plugin actually provides out-of-the-box integration between CA Service Virtualization and the Jenkins industry standard CI/CD automation tool. What does it mean? It means that you can leverage the service virtualization capabilities directly in the Jenkins without the need to prepare any manual scripts or command line scripts that will call some SV functionalities. You don't need to call HTTP APIs manually. Everything is prepared together in the plugin, so you can just easily configure and call the actions from the Jenkins, and you don't need to prepare any manual scripts or parse the responses and so on. So it's a very easy way how to leverage CA Service Virtualization capabilities within the Jenkins environment.
Why would someone use that over the traditional ways of using CA Service Virtualization, and ultimately what's the benefit in using it?
Well, you know, the Jenkins is very powerful if you would like to automate on continuous integration or continuous delivery flow. So Jenkins is a very great tool for that. You can, automate the build, the testing scenarios, and everything there, so you can maintain it. You can get the notification. So that's the best tool for the CI/CD automation. I would say it provides a lot of great opportunities. And on the other hand, we have CA Service Virtualization with unique features that can bring your continuous delivery to the next level, I would say. You can virtualize your dependencies using multiple variety of protocols. Your teams that are working in the development of particular feature are not dependent to some other organizations or teams. You can virtualize the dependencies. So CA Service Virtualization provides unique set of techniques and features that can bring your testing and continuous delivery pipeline to the next level. So it makes a grand sense to combine these two tools together. So using the Jenkins, you will get great automation possibilities. You can integrate with some other tools as well, and have the CA Service Virtualization features available within these Jenkins automation flows. So, for example, you can prepare and start virtual services before your testing flows. So your test could leverage the virtualized services, and then after the testing finished successfully or even not successfully, you can stop the services or tear down the virtual service environment at all. So that's the way how you can sequence the actions and leverage the CA Service Virtualization features there.
Very cool. So you mentioned a couple of the features and the functions of the plugin. So what are the formal, all the comprehensive key functionalities that this plugin provides?
Well, from the service virtualization perspective, and I would add even the application test, we can call it altogether like a DevTest, CA DevTest. We are providing the very essential capabilities in this first initial version of the Jenkins plugin. So obviously, you can start and stop virtual services, that's a clear functionality. And I would add their ability to deploy and undeploy or remove the virtual services from the virtual service environment. So these four capabilities are related to the virtual service use case, and they cover the essential use case in this space. From the application test perspective, you can deploy and start test and test suites, including having simple test and test suites reports within the Jenkins environment as well. So these are the 5 key functionalities from the DevTest domain. But in addition, we support the Jenkins, I would say, umbrella features like you can script everything using the Jenkins pipeline. You can use the parameterized builds. So you can parameterize the names of the virtual services that will be started. And you can support or use the support of the Jenkins credentials. So any connection to the DevTest environment could be stored within the credentials maintained by the Jenkins securely. So the Jenkins plugin fully fits into the Jenkins, leverage the Jenkins native features where applicable. And now I would like to jump to the browser screen to show you a quick live demonstration of this 5 key use cases here in the UI. So in the screen, I hope you can see my Jenkins instance where I have already my plugin installed. If I can go to the new item to create a new build step, let's say demo, and I will use the freestyle project. In the build step area, I can select the CA Service Virtualization actions. As I mentioned, start virtual service, stop virtual service, deploy, test, deploy virtual service, and non-deploy virtual service. So this way, let me select the start virtual service, I can easily create a step that will start virtual service ABCD. So that's the power of the plugin, because I don't need to call manually some HTTP endpoints that CA Service Virtualization provides, and everything is built into the plugin. So if I just save, I will have this job ready, and I can use it. Let me go to the DevTest portal first, because here I have one virtual service prepared. It's called Cars REST, and I will start this service from the Jenkins. So this is this job. If I will go inside to its configuration, I can see in the build step that I'm using VSE environment, and the service is Cars REST. So if I will run this one, and here I go back to the portal, the service is started right now. So that's the very brief demonstration of the very simple functionality for the beginning. I'm sure that during today's webcast we will go to much more detailed use cases, but that's the main point and the key functionalities in the Jenkins plugin.
One question that I bet is on the attendee's mind: where do we get it? How can I download it?
Well, it's very easy because the plugin is deployed to Jenkins IO Marketplace. So just from within your Jenkins instance, you can get the plugin from there. And let me show it to you as well. I have another Jenkins instance which is completely freshly installed. Nothing is inside, even no jobs are there. So if I will go to the Manage Jenkins and open the plugin manager here, I can search for CA Service Virtualization. It's here, and just download it from here, and that's it.
That sounds simple enough. So it's pretty straightforward. Okay. What about, could you talk a little bit more? You just gave a brief introduction. Could you talk a little bit more in the show and tell on the functionalities related to the virtual service, to stop and start and stop and so on?
Yeah. Okay, sure. So let me go back to the original Jenkins instance where I have the plugin already installed and where I have some sample jobs prepared. So let's suppose I downloaded the plugin from the plugin manager. Once I will download it, it's automatically installed. And first of all, what I need to do is the configuration, which is actually very simple here. If I will go to the Manage Jenkins and Configure System, there will be a new section dedicated for the CA Service Virtualization plugin. It's here. Here I can define the global default connection to the DevTest instance. In this case, I need to provide URL and port and the credential to my DevTest instance that are using the Jenkins credential system. So I can add a new credentials using the Jenkins credential provider. So the credentials are already there, so everything is set up. So this definition here is a global default for my job. If I will go to the definition of the particular jobs, for example, again, for the start service job that I prepared, you can see that only I need to provide is the VST name and the virtual service name I would like to start. The connection to the DevTest is taken from the global definition. What I can do also, I can override this global connection. So I can have, for example, VST2 here and use a different port and different credentials. So this way I can configure every individual job to connect to a particular DevTest instance. The global connection is there still as a fallback, but I can override it here. Or even I don't need to define the global connection, and for every job I can provide individual settings here. So that's the first thing. So the start virtual service action is pretty straightforward, the same way as the stop. So if I will open the configuration here, it's actually very similar. Again, I need to provide VST name and the name of virtual services to be stopped. So nothing complex, no big deal here.
So I think that relates to one of the questions I see here from Shiva Kumar. He says, how will Jenkins know from which project the virtual service has to be picked, and is there a way to specify which specific VSC the service has to be deployed?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I'm just going to answer it. So for the start-stop case, actually, is going across the project. So you can start the deployed virtual service, you can stop virtual service that has been started. For the use case, when I would like to deploy the virtual services, and let me open this particular job, it works in the way that I'm providing a MAR file that contains all of the metadata about the virtual service. So I can deploy the MAR file bundles, which contains the virtual services. I can provide a single one. I can provide comma-separated list of the MAR files, or I can even provide the wildcard notation. So, for example, if this artifact folder in the workspace of the Jenkins job contains more MAR files, I can provide a wildcard notation here. You may ask the question how to get the MAR files to the workspace. So typically in Jenkins, you can use built-in support for source code management. Here I'm using connection to my GitHub repository. So if I will switch the tab here, here is a repository with the MAR files I have. So from here, this job will check out the MAR files, and in this case, if I'm using the wildcard notation, all of the MAR files will be deployed to my VSC. So this is the way how to get the files from the repository and deploy them. You can use an alternative way. I will open this help tooltip. I can use even the HTTP location. So if the file is stored in some Artifactory solution and you can address this file using the URL, you can provide the direct URL to this window as well. So the MAR file will be downloaded from there and deployed to the DevTest. Or in, I would say, a little bit more extreme case, I can even specify the absolute path on the DevTest environment file system where the MAR file is located there. So there's a flexibility from where I could download or from where I could, I would say, locate the MAR file, which would be deployed to the particular VSC. But I would say that the most typical case would be to retrieve it from any source code repository and deploy it from there. So let me run this particular job. So if I will go back again to the portal, I can see that there is a single virtual service deployed right now. So if I will run this deploy, it will take a few seconds, and I will refresh this. I can see that the new virtual service appeared, and it's automatically running. So that's the deploy action. The undeploy is I would say not so complex, but actually nothing in this Jenkins plugin is complex. But undeploy just again listing the VSC name parameter and the VS name that should be undeployed or removed from the VSC instance. So if I will run this undeploy here, and go back to the portal and refresh, you can see that the service disappeared. I mentioned that you can use the parameterized build. So let me show you an example of that. So using the Jenkins parameters, I can actually mark this project as parameterized and define two parameters, for example, VSE and services. And later on, in the build tab definition, I can just use the variable defined. So anytime I will run this build, I need to provide these parameters, these values, but it allows me to create a job that could dynamically accept, which VSC should be used, which services should be used. Again, you can use the comma separated list here, and even what credentials and what connection should be used. So I can create a single job, which will be actually driven by the values I submit as the parameters there. So this is for the virtual services use case.
So I see a question that actually kind of piggybacks on there, and is it possible to execute Lisa test? I guess it's the application test, what we call now, from Jenkins using this particular plugin. I think there are a couple of features, right?
Yes, sure. Let me go a little bit detailed into this. So you can run test or test suite from the application test perspective. So I have again prepared a couple of jobs here. This one is actually running a test suite, which is supposed to be stable. And again, I can use the same paradigm because the tests and test suite are actually deployed using the MAR file approach. Actually, it's one of the limitations of the initial version of the plugin. You need to deploy the test and then run it. You cannot run from the plugin the test or test suite that's already deployed. You always need to deploy it first. It is something that we have on the future roadmap for the plugin. But for now, you can run the test from the deployed artifact. And again, you can use the Jenkins built-in capability to retrieve the MAR files from the repository. Again, in this example, I'm using my GitHub repository, which contains MAR files with test suites, and I'm deploying this test and running it from Jenkins. So let me run this one from here and wait for the result. Yeah, it's running. If I will go inside the console output, I can see all of the actions that are happening right now. So in the beginning, you can see that there are the messages related to the GitHub checkout from the repository. Later on, here are the messages related to the application test testing. So we can see that the MAR file was successfully deployed and that the test suite finished with the passed result. And in the next line, you can see a little bit more detailed output, which is always formatted this way. So if you would like to somehow manually parse and analyze this output, you can rely on this fixed format. So it always contains how many tests has been executed, and in the brackets, the details, how many tests passed and how many tests failed. So this particular test passed correctly. So what I can do, I can actually even display a simple reporting within the Jenkins, which is showing me the test name and even the cycle that has been run. And if I would like to go into the details, I can see some detailed payload provided together with the test results, where I can, even go into the details when the test started, finished, how long it did take, and so on. Also, let me run another build, which is going to be unstable, so which should fail. And let me a little bit explain the status colors we are using in the Jenkins plugin for CA Service Virtualization. So by the red color, we are using the typical Jenkins color codes or convention for the statuses. It means that the particular job failed, and really seriously failed. So, for example, the job was not able to connect to the DevTest, or it was able to connect, but the DevTest somehow failed for some reason. Maybe the MAR file was corrupted or something like that. So in this case, the job failed. In the case of the test or test suites, we are using the yellow color, which means that the tests were run on the DevTest side, but they finished. And let me show it to you. They finished with some failures. So that means the yellow color. So the test correctly proceeded, but not all of them passed, or maybe neither of them passed. So in this case, I can see that one test failed, the other one was okay, and even in this table I can drill down which test failed, which test passed. And again, in the console output, I can see this information in this text message format as well. Together with the testing, I would like to show you an example of the Jenkins pipeline way how to define the Jenkins job. Because what we see already, it was the typical Jenkins approach. You are using the form where I can fill the parameters, but the Jenkins pipeline gives you the way how to script everything and create even more complex scenarios or flows. So if I will open configuration of this job, you can see the code of this pipeline, which is in fact doing a series of the steps here. So in the first stage, it retrieves again the test and virtual service MAR files from the GitHub repository. After that, first I will deploy virtual services because my tests are using these virtual services. So in the beginning, I will deploy the virtual service based on the MAR file I checked out in the beginning. Then I deploy my test, again using the MAR files I checked out from the repository. And once the test is deployed, it's automatically run. So the test proceeds or not and I'm interested in the report. So using this command, I can tell Jenkins, please retrieve the data so you can see directly within the Jenkins this simplified testing report. And at the end, I'm using the undeploy action, which will actually clean up my environment. So the virtual service is going to be removed. So this is a very simple flow that I can create using the Jenkins pipeline. As you can see, we are using, it's currently highlighted, hopefully it's visible, we are using domain-specific commands for CA Service Virtualization, which are provided by the plugin. So this way, and you can use there like some conditional logic, you can use there some other commands, you can create really complex scenarios using the pipeline without any clicks and so on. And as you know, if you are familiar with the Jenkins, you can even retrieve this pipeline script from the source code repository. So anybody from your team or any contributor could update the script in the repository, and the Jenkins will automatically retrieve the latest version and run it. So let me run this pipeline. Actually, Jenkins environment provides for the pipeline this nice view where you can track what's going on. So we checked out the artifacts, we deployed the virtual service, now we are in the testing phase, and in a while we will finish. As far it's green, so the test passed. And again, I have the same capabilities like for the previous examples we shown. I can have the control output, where I can even see the pipeline script, where what's actually being executed and what are the control output there. And I can display, sorry, I clicked here, I can display the test report. So 1 test, 0 failures, and again the simplified report as in the example I already shown. So the Jenkins pipeline, and we know it's very popular among our users and customers, is fully supported. So anything you can do using the UI approach, you can do within the code here.
Here's a couple of, I think you talk about one of the limitations, and a couple of questions are the same. What version of CA Service Virtualization and Application Test, or some know as DevTest, can this Jenkins plugin be used with?
Okay, yeah. Actually, the full functionality of this Jenkins plugin is guaranteed with the version 10.3 and newer. The reason is that we are using some DevTest APIs that are available only in the 10.3. However, some of the features, especially the one related to the virtual services, are available even in 10.2. So, and even older versions, I would say. So, if I will formulate my answer in some, let's say, comprehensive way, the full functionality is guaranteed for 10.3 and later, and some of the functionalities related to the virtual services, start, stop, deploy, undeploy, will work even with the older releases of DevTest. But we expect the 10.3 baseline because this is the one that supports all of the features. So if you are on older version, then 10.3, you will not be able to run the test and test suites from the Jenkins plugin because this API is not available in the previous version, or actually it is, but it does not provide everything that we need for the Jenkins plugin to run it. So for the testing use case, you will need 10.3. The other actually compatibility is on the Jenkins side. The plugin is compatible with the Jenkins version 2.73, which was released, I believe, last year in November or something like that. So 2.73 is the baseline for the Jenkins version that you need to have to be able to install the plugin within Jenkins.
Very, very cool. So are there any other limitations, or is that it?
Well, these are the limitations related to the deployment, I would say. You know, whether I will be able to install it to the Jenkins, whether I will be able to connect it to the DevTest, and whether it will work correctly. There are, let's say, some limitations regarding the functionality, but these limitations are more or less like opportunities for the future updates of the plugin. So I was talking about the ability to start tests only from the deployed MAR files. So one of the features that we would like to focus in the future is to be able to start tests that has been already deployed. So you will simply start test by its name, the same way what we are having actually for virtual services. You know, here you can start a virtual service that's already deployed, or you can deploy the new one and start it. So the same experience we would like to provide for the test as well. One of the typical questions is, okay, I need to have the MAR files. So currently the plugin is working only with the artifacts that has been already created. You know, somebody needs to build the MAR file, put it to the repository, and this is the starting point for the plugin to retrieve it from the repository, deploy it, and so on. What we would like to improve in future, and that's one of another future plans, is to support to even create the virtual services from the sources. I mean, from Swagger specifications or from RR pairs or VSI, VSM definitions. So let's imagine that you have a repository where you have Swagger specifications of your services. So using the plugin, and this is the feature we would like to deliver in future, you will retrieve this Swagger documentation from the GitHub into the Jenkins build workspace, and using the Jenkins plugin for service virtualization, you will use this Swagger documentation, build a virtual service, run it. So it will add one more step before, actually, where you can create a service from these source artifacts. Right now, you need to have the MAR file. So I would not call it as a limitation today, but definitely there is more space where to improve to even support this build scenarios where you have real source for the virtual services like the Swagger or API specification, RR pairs, and so on.
Cool. Okay, so you talked about the future plans, and there's some more very specific technical questions here. Before we get to them, where can we find documentation and support?
Okay. One set of the documentation is present in the CA DocOps documentation portal. You know, that's the way where the CA DevTest documentation is provided. So let me open the tab. So here, this is the space with the DevTest documentation, and we have a dedicated page where you have description of how to configure the plugin, how to set up each of the build steps, and some examples of the Jenkins pipeline. The plugin is very easy to be used, but still there are some things that should be somehow clarified and described, and what are the, you know, expected input formats and so on for the fields. So one documentation set is present in the CA DocOps. The other one is located on the Jenkins pipeline reference hub, where we have a CA Service Virtualization Plugin subpage where you can get reference documentation for the pipeline. So, for example, SV deploy test action is going to deploy test, and here you can find description of the parameters. The same way for the other commands like start and stop virtual service and so on. So the documentation is spread into two places. The how-to guide is on DocOps, and the pipeline reference together with the pipeline commands with other scripts or other Jenkins features is present on the Jenkins documentation hub. Also, you can use the CA DevTest communities where, as Melanie mentioned in the beginning, we have the CA Service Virtualization subsection. So feel free to put there any questions or feedback or comments or experience sharing with the Jenkins plugin. So definitely this is the place that we are monitoring, and we would be happy to provide answers to your questions or tips and tricks in the future and
even suggestions, right? I mean, if there are features and functions that you'd like to see in this tool, why not, right? And like Peter said, it is being monitored by our support and Peter as well. So it's a great way to communicate is through the community. So very good. Thank you. There's a couple of links. I think I saw that on the deck, right? There's the slide, the slide deck. There's some short URLs there. We'll keep it up for a few minutes so you can jot that down. But you will have copy of this deck on the communities. We will post a quick blog and the recording of this session for a future reference. So it'll be there as well. So Peter, there's tons of questions specifically. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we kind of dive into these questions?
Well, I think that all of the essential stuff that I had on plan, I already described and demonstrated, so we can jump into the questions.
Okay. So Shiva says, is it possible to parameterize the simulator name on which the test case suite has to be staged, like how we are given the same VSE name in the case of virtualization?
Yes, that's a very good question again. If I was talking about, let's say, the opportunities and the future plans, this is another one of them. So right now, all of the metadata are stored in the MAR file, including, the options for the tests and so on. So everything needs to be in a MAR file. So if you would like to change these configurations, you need to deploy a new MAR file and run the test from there. For future, we would like to provide an option, and similar for the virtual services as well, where you will have a special Jenkins set provided by the plugin, where you will be able to configure already deployed artifacts in the VSE, or together with the deploy test action, you will be able to provide some parameters like this. As of now, in this first version, everything needs to be in the MAR file already defined, and that's the way how the test will consume the parameters. But in future, we would like to expand these options to allow you to even override the stuff which is in the MAR file. So this way you will get the flexibility, and definitely we will provide the parameterized Jenkins abilities there. So we will be able to parameterize these attributes as you can do with the VSE. But again, it's something on our roadmap, and we got the feedback that this is something that is very important as well. So that's something we would like to focus on in future as well.
Cool. Here's another one that's probably in the future. RF asks, he's assuming that we can only deploy to an existing VSE. What if I use Jenkins to create a VSE container as part of my pipeline?
Yes, that's right now the plugin provides, I would call like the core virtual service features or capabilities. There will be another category which I would call like DevTest infrastructure management. So, for example, you will be able to have again a Jenkins action which will trigger a new VSE or start the registry or stop the registry or whatever. So you will be able to control even the DevTest infrastructure. As of now, we are just using the DevTest infrastructure, start, stop, deploy, undeploy, and so on. So this is another category of the capabilities that we are going to collaborate as well. Currently, you can create your own flow in the Jenkins. So even though the Service Virtualization plugin does not provide such capability out of the box, and if we would like to provide it in future, definitely it will be much easier for you to use it. But as a workaround today, you can use I would say, other Jenkins capabilities like, run the command line script and so on, and the script could actually, create the VSE for you dynamically. So using the Jenkins, you can achieve it right now. It will be a little bit manual work, but you can achieve it. And as I mentioned, in future, this is something we are considering as well. So using the plugin, you will be able to operate the infrastructure to, start new VSEs and so on. But again, this is something we are considering in the future. It's not available today, but as I mentioned, and bit of scripting and some, I would say, manual work, you will be able to work around it. And you can have a job that will prepare this environment for you, and then you can retrieve, for example, the host name that will be created dynamically from whatever Docker container and so on, and use this host name as a parameter from deploy virtual service. So you will get the parameter for the DevTest connection, port, VSE name, and so on. So you can easily chain these Jenkins actions together, and as the Jenkins plugin for CA Service Virtualization provides the parameters from Jenkins, you can pass these dynamic values there and use the jobs that you define in a dynamic way, not only like statically with the already predefined connection. So hopefully this answers your question. Definitely feel free to elaborate more in the communities or connect with me offline, and we would like to discuss that in details.
Yeah, I think you also answered this question. I just want to make sure that we address it clearly. That is there a way to pass the VSE and service name dynamically to Jenkins?
Yes, that's possible using the Jenkins parameters. So if you mark your Jenkins job as parameterized, you are able to pass these values to the job. So regardless whether you are starting the job from the UI or using the Jenkins REST interface, you can pass these parameters there and, create something like a template job that contains like the placeholder for VSE and the virtual service name and provide the values during the runtime. So that's possible.
Okay, cool. If there are multiple projects in the service virtualization, under which project will this get deployed?
Well, that's a very good question, and I need to think a bit, because I think that in this case, well, that may be something that will be a topic for some community tips and tricks kind. Because
okay, very good question. You stopped the expert there. Very good question.
Well, I think that the answer could be actually find in the documentation of the DevTest APIs that's used for the Start Virtual Service. Mm-hmm. So definitely this situation is resolved somehow, but I apologize. As of now, I cannot provide 100% correct answer to this question. So
very good. We'll look it up and we'll have it on the community for sure. So okay, around builds. If a build fails, yes, will the test fail as well? Or in other words, if the test fails, will the build fail?
No, actually not. Like as I mentioned, we are using this three-state logic. Like the Jenkins blue means everything is okay, the job proceed correctly, and everything that the job actually performed finished with the correct or without any issue. So that's the happy pass, I would say. Then we are using the Jenkins REST, the failure, and it means that the job failed because of some, I would say, serious issues like unable to connect to DevTest, provided service name is non-existing, provided MAR file contains some malformat data, or the job was not able to deploy the mark files with the test and so on. So the red means something I would call like the, I would say, infrastructure issue. And then we are using the third state, which is the yellow, in Jenkins terms, unstable, which indicates exactly the case when the job, using the up-test testing or test suite, actually proceed correctly. So there were no issues with connections, no issues with var file, no issues with anything, but the test itself failed. So it indicates the case that you were able to perform the test, but the result of the test is failure. So this is the yellow state, the unstable state. So the difference between yellow and red, the red means the tests were not finished because something failed or they were even not started, and the yellow means the tests were finished with a failure state.
Very cool. I think we addressed all the questions, so if you still have any outstanding questions, please make sure to post them there. But as some brownie points, I guess, that one listener says that what they like about this feature is that it's not dependent on the build type, such as Maven build or Ant build. So you know, kudos to you for developing that. So. Oh, there's another one. Yeah, thanks a lot for this already awesome and hugely promising plugin that we rock. Thank you. RF, appreciate that. Yeah. I think the VSD, where the services are deployed, is agnostic to any project. He may be wrong, but just a thought, Shiva says. So, okay. Are there any other questions? Are we going to open for phone calls? I think all the questions have been addressed. So.
Yeah, so just a reminder, guys, now is the time when you can ask any questions you have over the phone. In order to do that, you'll need to unmute your line. In order to unmute your line, you can click #6 on your telephone keypad. That will unmute your line and allow you to chime in. While we wait for people to do that, there was one question that we missed, Alan. The one that we haven't answered is, what's the estimated timeline for the planned feature of creating MAR files from Jenkins for 2019?
Well, I'm afraid that I'm unable to answer that, because even if I know that, I cannot promise any particular date. But, you know, I will answer it in the way that the Jenkins plugin has a bit different life cycle than the DevTest. You know, DevTest is released, you know, in periodically every, I would say, 6 months. But with the plugin, we have the flexibility through the Jenkins marketplace to release new versions frequently or in different, I would say, frequency from the DevTest life cycle at the DevTest enterprise product. So currently, I cannot promise any date. It could be 2018, it could be 2019, but we are considering the Jenkins plugin, as was actually mentioned, as a very promising thing. Even it's very tiny, but opens a lot of opportunities, so it's very important for us, and we would like to focus on that. So we would like to deliver these, I would say, built from Jenkins capabilities. I mean, build virtual service from the sources. I would say sooner than later, and definitely it has very high priority in our timelines and plans. So hopefully this answer somehow fulfills the expectation.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll post that announcement to the community once, you know, any new features are available. So as always, keep an eye on the DevTest community.
And as we wait for new questions, if you don't mind, Peter, put your contact information there. I think you have it at the end, so that way we can.
Sure.
There's his email. So I'm sorry, Melanie, I interrupted you.
That's okay. I just wanted to pause and see if anyone had any questions they wanted to ask over the phone line.
And this another just shameless plug. This will be showcased and hands-on lab at CA World coming up in November. It's going to be a new venue. It's going to be in Miami this time, not Vegas in the last few years. So we will be talking about this as a new feature that has come out. So we will be, Peter, I believe, will also be there to meet in person. So the rock star today will be there signing autographs and taking selfies, as I would as well. So one thing I ask that you do, if you think that this is a good feature, that you appreciate the feature and you want to share it outside, please do. Please share. Send the link to your friends and colleagues, and make sure they know of this new functionality and feature. It really coming from you is a lot more important than coming from, me, the product marketer that's always bragging about my product. I really like it when customers are talking greatness about how they're using the tool, how they are leveraging the tool and the features and the functions. So that really does help my job and Peter's job, of course, to get the word out and how great our product is. So shameless plug there, done. Ended. Are there any other questions that you guys have for Peter?
Well, I would just add to your plug, Ellen, that actually we would welcome even any success stories or some success examples how the plugin was used in your particular case. So together with I would say some kind of tips and tricks and other kind of collateral, feel free to share any interesting, observation or experience with the plugin, because, somebody else may leverage that, and it will help us to find out even better and understand even better the context when the plugin is being used, because, the Jenkins provides unlimited ways, or I would say infinite ways, how to combine the stuff together with other integrations, other tools, other flows. So feel free to share your success with the plugin. Definitely, we would appreciate it.
Wow, and we thought this was going to be a short call. We're going up to almost
people are interested.
Almost the hour. Yeah, I appreciate that. Let's give them a last chance for questions.
We did have one more come in, and I think this is the last one we'll be able to take, guys. So if you think of any questions later on, as always, reach out to Peter, myself, Alan, post to the community, and we'll be posting this Q&A transcript later as well. But the last question we got that came in was, you spoke about infrastructure management with this plugin. Will we be able to monitor performance of the portal? Example, if the portal is up, what is the heap memory, etc.?
Well, this is something we didn't consider yet. That's very interesting input. Just everything is in the plan, in the backlog, I would say. So as you already heard on this call, there are a lot of things that are waiting to be done. So we need to prioritize everything and so on. But definitely, this input about the monitoring of the, I would say, DevTest health or DevTest operation, telemetry and so on could be interesting to add as well. So thank you for this inspiration or for this idea. So we will put it together with the other tips and suggestions, and definitely we will consider it and think about it and prioritize with the other stuff and try to deliver it as soon as possible to you.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think that's it for questions for today. So as I said, if you think of anything later on, reach out to any of us, post to the community. Like I said earlier in the webcast, we do have a brand new category put out on the DevTest community around this Jenkins plugin. So if you have any questions, comments, anything around it, you can use that new category, and our product team will be able to easily find your questions that way. So I think we're ready to close out for today. I wanted to thank Peter and Alan for a great presentation today. I really like the interactive style that you guys used. Thank you everyone so much for your interest and for all the great questions. As I said, we'll be posting the recording, the slides, and a copy of the Q&A transcript to the community later today. So if you're interested in viewing that, keep an eye out on the DevTest community. I'll also put a comment into the event so that anyone that RSVP'd will be notified of that as well. And I think Alan also has a blog post around this that he's going to be publishing as well. So keep an eye out for that and all the other great content the product team is constantly putting out. And we do have some roadmaps coming up, so if you're interested in joining those, you can head to the DevTest community and see those upcoming dates. Or if you would like to go to ca.com/roadmaps, you can see all of the available products and dates for that as well. So that's on just the general service virtualization and app test product set. Okay, so that's it for my outro. I want to thank you guys again for a great presentation. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And we hope everyone has a great day. We'll see you out in the communities. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Goodbye, guys.
Goodbye.